Miss Yvonne with watercolor painting. Today we're going to be doing the color wheel and really focusing on learning how to mix and use the paints. Not so much the actual mixing of the colors themselves. Most children between the ages of 9 and 12 are already very familiar with the color wheel. So let's get into it. I'm using Artist Loft watercolors, and I have a Sharpie and a pencil for drawing our chart, our color wheel chart. I have just a regular round nose paintbrush. We're going to be using this same one throughout the whole video. I have watercolor paper, paper towels, I'm using a paper plate to put my watercolors on. I have 2 cups of water, one for dirty water, one's labeled clean water, and I'm going to use that throughout the drawing or throughout the video. So what we're going to do is first, what I'm using this is double duty. I'm actually going to use this to trace our pie chart on, so I'm just doing that. You can get a nice pretty circle. This is a regular, I believe this is a 7-inch plate, I'm not sure. Now, to get the pie slices for this, you can either draw it on your own like this. Now, each slice needs to have, or each section needs to have 2 slices, so you can do this. And notice how what I'm doing isn't perfect, but that's okay. I tell all my kids all the time, it doesn't have to be perfect. So that's one way to do the pie chart. If you want to do it more accurately, you can do it this way, where you draw a plus sign or an X down the middle, and then what you want to do is look at this line here and split it in half and draw a vertical line going this way. And you want to do the same thing on this side. And then you want to look at this line here, split that in half, and draw a horizontal line that way, and do the same thing here. Now, the way we get our pie slices is we're looking at the outside corners, and that is where we need to connect. So it's going to look a little like this. So we're going to start here, and we're going to draw all the way down and connect it to this one right here. So that is kind of, you're going to end up crossing at the middle. And this should give you pretty accurate pie slices. You can use a ruler for this. I should have used a ruler for this. So now you see we've got pretty even pie slices here. What I'm going to do is go over it in my Sharpie so you can see it much more clearly. And then I'm going to erase the pencil marks that I made. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to label our chart, so it's just easier for organizing our colors when we paint. We're going to make sure that we're going to start with primary colors. Now, all of you know primary colors consist of red, blue, and yellow, and these are the 3 pigment colors that can't be mixed or formed by any combination of other colors, and all colors come from these 3. So we're going to label for, if little quiz, what are the primary colors. If you guessed red, blue, and yellow, you are correct. And we're going to make sure that they are equally distant from each other here on our pie chart. So you see that these three are directly across from each other. So you notice that there's going to be 3 pie slices in between each primary color. So the secondary colors, what are they? If you know them, guess them right now. If you guess green, orange, and purple, you are correct. And so these 3 colors, they're mixed by mixing the primary colors. Now, we're going to make sure that there is a space in between the primary colors and the secondary colors. So between blue and yellow, what color do you get? You get green. And then when you mix red and yellow, what color do you get? Orange. Very good if you guessed orange. And then when you mix blue and red, what do you get? If you guessed purple, you are correct. And that happens to be my favorite color, class. Okay, so the last group of colors, what do we fill those last spaces with? These are the tertiary colors. Now these colors come from mixing a primary color and a secondary color together. So when you have, we're not going to go any fancy names with this. We're just going to name it, like if we mix green and yellow, you always name these with the primary color first and then the secondary color listed second. So this is going to be, when you mix yellow and green, you get yellow green. It's just for mixing purposes or naming purposes. So I'm just going to abbreviate them. So when you mix yellow and orange, what do you get? Yellow orange. When you mix red and orange, you get red orange. When you mix purple and red, you get red purple. And when you mix blue and purple, blue purple. And then when you mix blue and green, you get a bluish green color. So those are that's the color wheel in terms of naming them. I don't need that Sharpie anymore. So what we're going to do next is we're going to get our palette ready. I'm using a palette that I used for my previous session class. So I already have yellow, red, and primary blue on here. So that's going to be really helpful. What you also want, you can get a separate, this is the only other bowl that I had here, but you can use either the space on your plate, or you can use a separate plate to mix primary and tertiary colors, or secondary colors to get the tertiary colors. So what we're going to start with in watercolor, we always start with the lightest color first. This is going to be easier when we go around the color wheel. So you always dip your paintbrush into the water to wet it. Have your paper towels nearby, and we're going to start with yellow. So I'm going to get some water on my yellow, and what I'm using here is the wet on dry technique. We're going to learn about this in the next video, guys, but this is the technique that's going to better control the colors. So I'm just painting it here. Now notice I'm kind of leaving a little bit of a white space in around. I'm not filling it entirely, and I'm not using a ton of water. I'm also not using a ton of paint. Oh, got a little green there. Let's mix that in. Your colors don't have to be overly saturated at this point. Now, boys and girls, saturated is when a color is really, really bold and bright. With watercolor, they're going to turn out really light on the first layer. And we're just doing one layer around just to get the colors here. When we do our next class, we're going to talk more about layering. but for this case you only need one layer, and notice it's not super bright, it's not super bold. Okay, so now I want to go to yellow orange. So when we mix watercolor, so you're going to grab the yellow, but what you want to do, because yellow and red make orange, you only want to grab a little bit. And with yellow orange, you want this color to have a sample of orange, but you don't want it too bright. I mean too dark. If it's too orangey, just mix some more yellow into it. And so I'm adding a little bit of water here. Okay, so I'm going to use that. That looks good to me. So notice that it's, oh, maybe I need a little bit more. Oh, maybe I need a little bit less. Okay, so that's a little bit better. It's more orangey, but it's still a very much yellowish color because it's a blend between yellow and orange. And then we're just adding more. To get orange, we're going to do an even mix of red and yellow. I may need a little bit more yellow in here. Looks more like the next color, red orange. Okay, that's a little bit better. And notice how the colors are now getting slowly darker and darker. And that's what you want. You want a gradual change in these colors. So to get red and orange, to get that red-orange color, I'm going to mix some more red in here. Darken it up just enough to make that noticeable change in color. Okay, so now for red, I'm just going to go ahead and use the pure color on its own. And one of the things, kids, that you notice that I'm doing is I'm adding, sometimes I dip my brush into the water instead of the color itself to get more color, to make it spread more. That's the thing about watercolor, is that you're using water to help yourselves paint, not necessarily so much color. Okay, so for red purple, I'm going to grab some red and I'm going to put it on my plate. That's going to be where I mix. To get red purple, you're going to add a little bit of blue, right? We're not adding a lot of blue, right? We want this to be mainly red, more red than purple, okay? And see how when I added more blue, it got really, really purple. If it gets too purple, just add more red. And you get it back to that red-purple color. So notice that it's now much darker than our regular red color. And it's okay if the colors bleed into one another. Notice here how the red-orange is bleeding into the red. Don't worry about that. That's part of how watercolor works, is that colors bleed into one another, and it usually turns out really pretty and makes some really cool, really cool designs. I'm going to add more blue to get an even mix of blue and red to get me my purple. And now I want to get to blue purple, so I'm going to add more blue to this purple color. And it looks now, this blue, this is the other thing about watercolors, even with the same brand, the colors act differently. Like this blue is super strong compared to all the other colors that I have. So I gotta be careful with, if I'm adding blue in this palette, I gotta be careful with how much blue I add to things. Okay, now I'm going to just get my pure blue color here. See, look at how deep that color is, and I didn't even use a lot. When you have a dark color like this, get just clean water, clean your brush, and get clean water, and use that water to spread the color out rather than getting more paint. Okay. Alright, so I'm going to gather blue off to the side here to get my mixing going. So now we're going to go right back to yellow and add a little bit of yellow in here to give it that blue-green color. And see, we don't even need to add a lot, and we still get that strong blue color in here. Actually, I'm going to add a little bit more blue. Add more yellow to get that green. And now I'm going to add even more yellow to get yellow-green. That nice in-between color. Okay guys, and that is the color wheel. This is good practice at home. Kids come up with some more colors by mixing different shades. You can mix green and yellow green to get an in-between color, and so on and so forth. Hope to see you for the next class. Bye-bye.